All right. Well, so next up is the new email workflow. Here you go, Dave.
Thank you.
And I know I would estimate there are probably 20 mobile email apps here today that we'll see. We'll see a couple of them in the startup showcase. But I think this is going to be a really interesting topic for a lot of you that are thinking about new ways of working with your email and processing it. So, as we were able to look at our email on all these different devices in different places, the workflow of it's changing. It used to be you had an inbox. And as we kind of heard in the last thing that some people were used to, you start at the top and you work down to the bottom. And then we got a spam folder. You had to go check the spam folder every once in a while too. And then there was an archive feature in Gmail, and there was another way to deal with messages that you have. Then we started getting other folders and views for high priority messages, or for transactional messages, or shopping messages, or promotional messages like we heard, creating other ways to go through those. And now companies like Motley Bunch you see here today and Slice are taking receipts and shipping notices out of your email and doing other things with them, putting them in a different context. And starting to tie things together between those emails so that they're making a connection. Okay, this promotion goes with this receipt, which goes with this shipping notice, which goes with this other thing, and making some sense out of that. Also, I used to just read email at my computer. That was the only place that you read it. People that were at their computer all day were on email, and it was like, oh, I haven't seen that, haven't been to my computer yet. And obviously, that's totally changed. And with that, the interfaces, right? Webmail for the past 5 or 10 years was the dominant interface for many people to email and how they're interacting with it. And that was also the message store and the interface at the same time. But now, with mobile usage on the rise and all these different clients and IMAP access being accessible across most of the major providers, there's lots of different options for how you can interact with your email. And actually owning the message store and the email address isn't quite the same as what it used to be, because someone might be reading it in a totally different context in a different client. And all that creates a lot of opportunities for startups to make to gain traction and to do differentiated things, but also opportunities for established players to kind of change the mix a little bit and gain more market share by differentiating themselves. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Mailbox. We mentioned that earlier. That was really great, successful press launch and exit to Dropbox. I think that's just an example of how fast things can go and how much things can change. So we've got a really diverse panel up here today, representing some pretty different perspectives. We've got Kaushal with one of the largest email providers in the world from Yahoo, and we've got email tools and kind of triage and processing lots of email. We've got a mobile app and business focused, kind of going through email on your phone and thinking about business users. So we've got a couple different perspectives, and I think that's hopefully going to provide some insights for all of you and open with some good questions. So starting at the end, Andrew I is the founder and CEO of Boxer. Also last year presented here in the startup showcase as TaskBox, and he's building one of the next generation mobile inboxes. And so he's got an emphasis on mobile design, something we heard a lot about previously, speed, and how it can integrate with other apps out there. Boxer is enabling business users to be productive on their phones as much as they are on their computers. And they're based in Austin, so I know Andrew really well. He works out of our office at Capital Factory. They just closed a $3 million round of funding with Sam Pilara, another email veteran and ex-Yahoo guy from Sutter Hill Ventures. And this isn't Andrew's first rodeo. He's done a couple startups before, so he's got some experience here in working with clients and how they do productivity. Dave Troy, who's next, is the CEO of 410 Labs. Joins us here from Baltimore. Thanks for coming in. He founded his first company at age 14 and has founded 10 companies total since then. How many email companies in there?
Really if you count the ISP, I guess two.
But then lots of email products. At 410 Labs, he's focused on a number of different email products, starting with short mail, which was a way to send short emails and putting some constraints on the email to maybe change behavior. And an entirely new platform that was a new platform around short messaging. And then Maelstrom, which is what we're going to, I think, focus on today, a new tool around inbox workflow and really processing, going through lots of email. I don't think Maelstrom's not really for someone that gets 5 emails a day. And so this is third Inbox Love. Thanks for being here again. I really appreciate you making the trip. And then Kaushal Kurapati is a senior director of product management at Yahoo Mail. He started with Yahoo Search, advertising, and e-commerce. And he's also an inventor. He's got 22 patents in personalization, recommendation systems, and search. Yahoo Mail is one of the largest email providers in the world, along with some of our other partners here today as well. And they just recently released a major update we're going to hear a bunch about today. They've obviously got some new leadership there with Marissa Mayer. And one thing in particular that I like about it is really, as we've seen in some other places as well, the web and the mobile experience have fully merged. And it's a very, very consistent experience across the two places. Kaushal benefits in particular from having the insights of being able to observe hundreds of millions of users and learn what their problems are and how that inform their solutions. And as I work with a lot of email startups trying to do things, I see that as one of our biggest challenges, is right? We're kind of like operating in the dark a bit, like trying to just guess, like, what do people want? And then they go, like, let's go build it and see if they like it. And he has this amazing advantage of being able to have hundreds of millions of observers to see what do they do and what are they interested in and what matters, and obviously launch things more easily. So I think he's going to bring a really great insight to that. So to start off, we've got a short intro from each of our panelists. So I guess I'll manage the slides here for you. And we're going to start. Did I go the wrong way? There we go. We're going to start with Andrew with Boxer. So I've got your slides, and you can see them there in front. If you want to.
Yeah, so thanks, Josh. So as Josh mentioned, we presented here last year as Taskbox. So some folks who've been back for multiple times would have remembered what I think was quite a bit uglier interface last year. So we're happy to have made some improvements there. But I think Jared mentioned earlier, it's been a fun ride for Boxer for the last year. We were first to market with kind of this gesture-based approach to mobile email triage. And that's certainly gained a lot of popularity, and there's a lot of folks kind of in this space as well. But I thought in the vein of kind of mobile workflows or new email workflows, we'd talk about some of the deeper functionality and kind of what we're trying to surface. So the three kind of key areas that Boxer's focused on in the last year, first is that mobile optimized interface and helping people with the triage use case. But what we've really learned is that building any interface and imposing workflow on people gets you a very loyal and very small group of users. And so what we've really tried to do now is open up mobile email to the same type of innovation that we see on desktop. That's traditionally been really difficult in mobile, and many of us have had to go out and build our own mobile email clients if we wanted to add one feature. And so what Boxer's trying to do now is really open this up so that other partners can come in and add their functionality to a really popular mobile mail client. So the first piece of that for us was making our interface configurable. And that gets to just the really simple things of swipe gestures. You can, if you don't like swiping right to left to archive, you can change it to left to right. If you never archive, but you constantly move things to spam, you can set those gestures up to be any of those kind of common workflows that you use every day. And so what we've done now is kind of create this completely configurable interface that allows you to map the tool to your own existing workflow rather than imposing a workflow on you. And the other thing that we've really focused on is extensibility. And so opening up this framework to Box, to Dropbox, to Evernote, to Facebook, LinkedIn, and now today we'll be showing off the latest integration with a new partner here, SaneBox. So next slide, Josh. So to give you an idea of what that is, a lot of the mobile operating systems give you an opportunity to kind of do the open-in integration, but these are really still context switching, very heavy on the user, and require a lot of app switching, and we find that users kind of reject that. So what we try to do is much deeper, meaningful integrations for the most powerful tools. So to give you an example, for Box, that started off as just simple file attachments. But what we saw is that we're seeing a lot of these notifications come into email that at our desktops are very actionable, but on mobile are very difficult. So when I get a notification from Box that says I have content to approve, in the Apple Mail client, I have to click a link, I get directed to the Box website, I have to authenticate. After I authenticate, I approve that content, then I need to switch back to my mail client and archive the message. So what we've done in Boxer is now leverage that OAuth ability back to Box to pull the content preview in immediately, give you the one button approval, and allow you to take that action. So the goal is to kind of move from attention, which we all have already in mobile mail, to action, and allowing people to take as quickly as they can make the decision, yes, is this important? No, this isn't important. Allow them to actually take that action. And then going beyond just kind of the email stream, but also thinking about the context of contacts, we're trying to provide a normalization opportunity there as well. So if, as a part of what you're building, you've got kind of this email mining or interesting information about the person that's a part of that conversation, we've got the profile card that we allow you to extend. So in the case of Box, not only can I see the contact profile card, but I can also see my email history with that user. And then finally, I can see all of my document collaboration history with that user. So this is a lot deeper and more meaningful integration than just kind of the standard thing that you give the operating system. And then just to kind of, this is a mini announcement, but to give you a tangible example of what this looks like for other partners, we've now integrated with SaneBox, and this will be launching next month, so this is a bit of an early preview. But for SaneBox, this is about user acquisition, right? So mobile's a great opportunity for them to kind of market that opportunity, and we see email-heavy users and email super users who want to see this type of functionality. Now, right within Boxer, you'll be able to say, yes, I'd like to try SaneBox, activate the account, and then start to leverage all the advanced functionality that SaneBox has with snoozing, reminders, et cetera. And so those action buttons that we have are also extensible. So if you have that additional functionality and you don't want to build a mail client, we're trying to provide that ecosystem to allow people to innovate in mobile mail across all the major providers. So,
Great.
yeah, and sorry, Josh, just to wrap up, those are the integration partners. I mentioned some of those quickly, and the major integration points for us are around conversations, contacts, workflow, and attachments. So if there's any innovation that folks are trying to do, love to chat with you.
Yeah, it seems like if anything with mobile, email's always been core about integration with calendaring and contacts and other things, but on mobile it becomes even more important because you're just so much more restricted, so the integrations matter a lot.
Yep.
Awesome. So next up, Dave, and actually I found the clicker.
Okay, cool. So I'm Dave Troy. I'm the CEO of 410 Labs. We have a product called Maelstrom that we've been working on for the last couple of years. And it's really designed to kind of solve the problem that you have with cognitive overload with email. We've seen slides like this where you basically, your brain, when it sees a big long list of email, which again hasn't changed much in the last 40 years, tends to want to do that kind of sorting on it. It goes, oh, these things are related, and it basically induces all of this cognitive load on your brain. And how many of you have ever gotten off of a transatlantic flight to find that your email is completely out of control? You've got hundreds of emails. You go to your hotel, you're jet lagged, and you go, oh my God, this task of sorting out this stuff is going to take me hours, and I have no idea what's here, and it's stressing me out. So what Maelstrom does is basically go and do all of that cognitive load detangling for you and bundle things up into easy to handle buckets that you can then act on together. And we, similar to what we saw from Google with different tabs and stuff, we sort things by different sorts of categories. But rather than sort of putting things only into promotions or transactional type things, we have several different ways that we sort of slice and dice your mail. So things like sender and subject, mailing lists that you can automatically unsubscribe from, doing things by time bucket. So if you want to take all the mails from last month or last week and process those with a single click, you can do that. Social notifications, you can just scan those. And what we find is that a behavior that's pretty common is that people will just kind of scan over say all the social emails, and they'll read the subject lines, but they don't necessarily need to inspect the bodies. And by having those things grouped together, like we mentioned earlier, you could do batch processing, which is much more efficient and also reduces cognitive load for people. Shopping notifications, and then also by size. One of the things that people do worry about, even with all the storage that's available for free from Google and others, is that do they really want to be storing a gigabyte email if they don't have to? If they're done with it, they might as well get rid of it. So we allow you to sort things by size. And if you look over on the left as well, we have some graphs and things that show you progress towards inbox zero, as well as just an overall inflow and outflow, or sort of a volume graph to show you how much mail you've received and how much you've removed, so that you can get a sense of kind of your own quantified self stats for email. We actually provide a daily and weekly report if you prefer to show your sort of progress over time and give you a sense of how much mail you're processing, that sort of thing. So we also have some other features like the ability to chill messages till later, kind of like a boomerang-y, thanks Alex, kind of feature. And then also you can mark things as spam or put them in folders, delete them. And we also have a really nice automatic rule creation capability. So with a single click, you can create a rule without having to understand how to write regular expressions, that sort of thing. Lastly, we're grouping all of your accounts together if you choose to. So paid users can have up to 10 accounts aggregated into one single dashboard view, and process all this mail in bulk. So it's really good for people who have like, 250 emails a day, or coming to us with like 17,000 emails. You can process things really quickly. So we can talk more about that, but that's the basics of Maelstrom.
Maelstrom's very rewarding. You go in, you spend about 10 minutes, and it's like, you just eliminated 2,500 emails.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
This good,
Yeah, Walt
good
Mossberg,
feeling.
I think, said 22,000 in 30 minutes, so
Nice.
it was good.
Yeah. Awesome. Can you give him the clicker? Just hit the right arrow on that.
Oh,
one
yeah,
more.
there you go.
Again.
Well, thanks for inviting us to be on the panel, Josh, and want to call out a few colleagues who are here as well from our latest acquisition, Zobni, Josh Jacobson, the product lead for Zobni and many other things. We're excited to have them absorb them. Shiv from the product team as well, from controls all our backend. Anything you want to talk to him about, he's there today. And I believe there should be Kaushik, and his name is very similar to mine, but maybe he didn't come yet. But Chris Roy as well is from our design team. There you go.
I'm really glad that he pointed that out. We've got 3 good-sized breaks during the event today. And as much as I think the talks are great and the content's great, again, it's what's really special about this is all the people that are here in the room. And so during those times, part of why they're pointing all these people out is so you can go talk to them and go find them and ask them questions. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, sure. So we just had our Sweet 16 birthday, so we're very excited about that.
I mean, I can drive with my email now?
That's right. Yeah, you sure can. Right. We did a major upgrade to our experience across all devices, as most of you probably know, and very excited for a lot of things that we've done. Some visual, some under the covers, and so on. And a lot of these guys obviously played a major part in rolling these out. So one of the things is basically beautiful themes, which I'm personally excited about. We've got a lot of interesting sort of fan mail from people who are very excited to see a Volkswagen bus image and all kinds of things. We didn't even expect that, but sort of very interesting feedback that comes back from people. When you think of email flows as the topic of this particular conversation, of course, flexible we looked at sort of very small things as well, how people go through the email. To your point earlier, Josh, that we see hundreds of millions of users, obviously. And sometimes it's hard to make a change because you're just kind of scared. But we've taken pretty big leaps in that sense with this update. Flexible navigation is something that we've rolled out, and we've seen sort of very interesting uptake in people using it in very nice ways, in ways we expected. We, of course, tested these things before. You can collapse menus, and obviously there's higher satisfaction, it appears, to users. More content that comes into you, and more sort of visual satisfaction as well with the themes coupled with that. So that was good. Conversations was another big piece, which Shiv definitely spearheaded here, and a lot of things at the back that made this happen. And also what we've seen, it allows users to compress time in switching between tabs, which we had, and allows you to multitask in different ways now. The other one that we really enable is many quick actions. One of my personal favorites is being able to search for a sender right from the message itself. On many messages, you'll see a small icon appear. In fact, it happened yesterday. I was looking for an email from Josh, and I know he sent a bunch of emails over the past few days. I scanned it many times, the email list up and down, but I couldn't somehow spot it because there were many other emails as well, and so on. So I found one email, but that was the one that I wanted from you, and I quickly went and hit that quick action and got the other one that from you. So simple things, but also enable users to get to where you want to. Of course, deletion and marking it important and starting right from the message, you can do that now. The other things that I'm really excited about is, and we've not talked a whole lot, and some of the things is about organization here of email. So finding that email is sort of important, and so search becomes very important. Searching by category is there, which we don't talk a whole lot about. It's already there in the product. So you can do interesting things like is:travel, and it'll filter out all your travel emails. So it's actually semantic search. It's not really searching for the word travel there, clearly. So we do that for a few other categories as well. And we're seeing very interesting sort of usage of that, and I find it convenient myself to do that. And that's available for all the users, essentially. You can search for, and once you search, there are many refinements that we do that no other engine actually does it, I think. And that's because there's a very sophisticated structured data search engine at the back. So you can filter by whether you've read a message or not, by date, of course, but by sender and things like that. And that depends on the search type of search you did and the results sets that you get. I'll just spend maybe a minute, a few thoughts. A lot of these have been mentioned before in terms of behavior. So nothing should be really new here per se. First thing in the day, many people do it. I do it myself, email. Clearly, we are also seeing the growth of mobile.
Before or after you get out of bed?
While I'm still on the bed, actually, because the phone is right next to me, and I'll pick up the phone, and that's what I start seeing. And both my household, my wife does the same, and I do the same. So we're all
kind of romantic,
right? Yeah. Mobile growth, clearly we've seen a tremendous amount of mobile growth for our apps, and there's consistent user experience from across the desktop and mobile apps, and we're seeing a lot of uptick there, so that we're clearly excited and interested about. Triage, like I said, that's the first thing I do, and sort of quickly delete all the quick ones that I do on my phone. But the longer sort of compose and more thoughtful things that I need to reply to or send a longer email, obviously I do it still on my webmail or get to a better keyboard, basically. And the last thought here, we see a lot of rise in communications of other forms, but still we continue to believe there's so much thing that comes into your email that it continues to be a center of your lives, and it will be, and with all kinds of tools and organizations. I'm very amazed to also hear about other views here, and very interested to see the kinds of triage that you guys are doing with your tools. And there's a lot more innovation left in this space, I think.
Great. That's it. Thank you. Awesome. So I've got a couple questions, and then we will open it up as well for the rest of you. So Kaushal, let's start with you. Yahoo Mail. I've been working with Yahoo Mail with other inbox for many, many years, and we saw it go through. I think this is now the fourth UI iteration that I've been through over that time. So there was Classic, and then Candygram, and then Minty, and then now we've got the newest one.
Right.
And so I'm curious from your perspective, what's changed about how Yahoo users do their workflow as that's all happened? Is it still mostly start at the top and go through to the bottom? Or are these things changing the way that they process their mail or the way that they use it?
It depends on users. I mean, there are all kinds of users, right? I mean, some people do still do that traditional thing, and even all the updates still allow you to do that. But hopefully, with smaller, minor improvements in each place, that you can do some of those things that you weren't able to do before much quicker. Whether it's improvement under the covers and enabling tools that'll quickly let you find things and so on. So some of the core things are still the same, obviously, but we're trying to get it to a more beautiful experience, more engaging experience, and we see users more engaged, definitely. I mean, time spent and all of those kinds of things we look at. And also we look at things like, how are people able to reply fast? I mean, how do we enable that? And we've done quick actions even for that. With conversations, there is a small quick reply box at the bottom. So for instance, what we are trying to do is see what users do and sort of learn from it, and obviously test new things. And A lot of testing obviously goes on, and some don't make it to the final cut. And once what we launch, we feel pretty confident that they're helping users do those. So some of the processing is still remains the same, but some has changed as we have introduced new tools, as we have enabled new capabilities, whether it's like quick tools that I've mentioned, or in terms of whether search capabilities that are more sophisticated now, that change some of that behavior from users. Yeah.
Cool. So, so Andrew, what's fundamentally, you're building a mobile-only client right now, and then you're partnering with desktop and back-end providers and other people. What's so fundamentally different about mobile? Why is that merit being a standalone, separate client?
Yeah, so I think that the most interesting thing, obviously you're dealing with less screen real estate, but I think what's most interesting is just that we all know that people are taking these devices everywhere. And so I think there's a shift from email being an unintentional distraction, this thing that I'm trying to do real work, I've got my keyboard, I've got my big screen, to an intentional distraction. There's a great stat from Dave McClure last year where he tweeted out that 75% of American men take their cell phones to the bathroom, and 30% of American men refuse to go to the bathroom unless they have their cell phone with them, right? And so, what are we doing there, right? Like we're looking for that intentional distraction and pulling out our phones and saying, like, I've got 30 seconds to kill, what can I do? And so I think that's what's really interesting is that now people are looking at this, and I think traditionally that's been treated as just a viewing device. But I think now what we're seeing is more innovation around helping people actually take action in those small kind of micro-transaction, small amounts of time.
That makes sense. So we brought up this question here of the traditional view of the inboxes, start at the top, go to the bottom. Yahoo Mail, I think, still mostly in that mode. Boxer still pretty much in that mode as well. Maelstrom, pretty different perspective, right? You're coming in and you're in a different mindset, or at least I am when I log into Maelstrom and go use it. Can you talk a little bit about that? And not just that, but also, I'd love to hear just your broader thoughts on what other types of things would cause you to do a different workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mode that we're kind of operating in is in massive triage, and so the kind of analogies that we like to use when describing the product is we're kind of a machete or a machine gun for dealing with email, and rather than coming in and looking at strictly just a sequential message by message view, we're like, here is a giant blob of stuff that's all related that you can kill with a single click. Would you like to do that? And that flow is very different. And I think that certainly, as you mentioned, the product is really not aimed at people who are getting like 5 emails a day. But for anybody that's getting like 50 or 100 or 200 emails a day, which is increasingly more of us with the amount of stuff that's coming to us from whether that's e-commerce or social networks or what have you, there's just a lot of stuff coming our way. And frankly, I mean, I like getting the social notifications. I like to see when people favorite my photos or whatever, but I don't necessarily want to treat each one of those as a unit of information that I have to read individually. I want to be able to read that in a more digested form, and that's what kind of this summarization capability allows us to do. So it is a little bit different. I mean, right now we're focused very much on the desktop web, kind of experience. So it is very much like, you first thing in the morning, sit down, you're going to triage your mail, and that's what a lot of people do with Maelstrom is they use it first thing in the morning, and then they continue to use their mobile or other tools during the day. But the way that we built the service is all the hard, heavy work is going on the back end, and we intend to implement a mobile solution that'll enable that kind of triage throughout the day. But I think we may be past the point. In fact, I mean, we're definitely past the point where there's only one tool that people are going to use to attack their email. They're going to use one thing on mobile, they're going to use a different thing on their desktop, they're going to use a different thing on their tablet, and each one of those tools and each one of those contexts, I think, provides a different set of affordances and capabilities. So, what we want to do is be the thing that is the most awesome thing ever for bulk triage. And if we get that right, then we've done our job, and everybody else can do their job. We'd love to interoperate with everybody else that's out there, whether that's Apple Mail or Gmail or what have you, but we want to be the bulk triage kings. So It's a little different way of thinking about it.
I mate with a lot of email startups. It's part of my personal mission, and I have a kind of my beginning rant for when they're getting started, and it's hey, email is for everybody. right? It's for billions of people. And we've got Yahoo and Gmail and Outlook and others trying to create a solution for everybody, right? And that's really hard, as we've kind of heard about today. But yet, there are really big niches within email. And you don't have to make a solution that necessarily is for everybody, right? And so yours isn't for everybody. It's not for it's not competing against Yahoo Mail. It's for power users, and that's okay. There's lots of email power users.
Well, and I think that it's for people who are getting a lot of email, even if they don't consider themselves power users. We're sort of for people who are overwhelmed but do not want to necessarily take the time to figure out how to write all the rules and do everything that they would do in a Gmail context to, quote unquote, solve this problem. This just is a way of solving the problem really easily and simply.
Yeah, that's great. And we certainly saw a lot of those same things with Other Inbox, with our organizer product, where for me, the most useful part of that is I get a daily digest, a daily summary, and it's grouped by sender, so that's kind of put in context, and it's only commercial emails and notifications, which, like you said, for the most part, I don't need to see the message. The whole content, the payload's all in the subject, right? Like, this person liked this post. This person, did something else. You've got a, new follower that's this person. And I was able to just scan those, and most of them I never had to click on. And then I could just ignore them.
Exactly.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about the integration stuff. So obviously, Andrew really focused on that with Boxer as a way to differentiate and increase workflow. We talked about how that's really important, even more important on mobile. And then, as I've worked with Yahoo, Yahoo's kind of had different perspectives on that, where there was a time, particularly with with the last release, where there was an app store and there was a gallery and there were more third-party stuff in there.
Sure.
And then you seem to have shifted to the gallery's gone away, and now it's much more intentional, specific integrations, which with generally really, really big people, right? So it's Dropbox integration, or something like that. So I'm curious how Yahoo thinks about that, how they choose who to partner with or not. And we've got a whole bunch of startups here that are all going to corner you after this talk and be like, hey, I want to integrate with Yahoo. How do I partner with you? How do I be part of that? How do they get access to distribution to your customers? How do you think about that? And what's the bar? Like, what's it take to be able to go partner with a large email provider?
There's no sort of magic answer there, really. It's as long as it helps our users and it helps our consumers do things that they want to do quicker.
Like how many users does it have to help?
I don't think it's a question of how many users.
I had a couple million, and it didn't seem like it was that many, to
Right. I mean, so it's not so much of a question of that hardcore number of saying, oh, it's only 1 million or it's affecting 50 million. I think if it's core to helping users, getting things done and solving a particular pain point. I mean, Dropbox, which was very key to sort of storing files and attachments, and that helped that particular use case. So that we look at sort of as a case-by-case basis on interesting things that can help users and where there is they can do much quicker, then it makes sense. So I don't think there is any particular we're all ears for people to talk to always, and if there is something that's interesting, we'll always pick up the phone and have a deeper conversation.
Cool. So you can corner him after.
Yep.
Great. Let me ask one more question, and also definitely want to leave room for audience questions. So while I'm doing that, if you'd like to ask them anything, please come up to the mic. So we'll be ready for that next one. So Andrew, I'd love for you to think about that. Now you're from the startup perspective, and so one, of course, I'm sure you'd love to be Yahoo Mail's preferred email mobile client, but probably not gonna.
You said we were going to do that, right?
Yeah, probably not gonna happen tomorrow. And obviously they can do a lot of those things themselves. You're finding a way to integrate with other big companies like Box, or bigger companies, and also not as big, but still very significant companies like SaneBox here. How do you think about that, and why? How do you think of that as a differentiator and a value add for your product?
Yeah, well, I think the environment's different than it was kind of in the desktop world. So one of the things that we see with our user base, so we support every major mail provider, so anyone with IMAP, anyone with ActiveSync. And what we see from our users is that most of them are not religious about I'm only a Google user, I'm only an Exchange or Outlook user. Most of our users not only have multiple accounts, but multiple service providers. And so one of the interesting positions that puts us in is to be able to provide innovation that works in both of those environments, that I can have the same advanced functionality for my Outlook account and for my Gmail account. From a platform perspective, that's interesting. And I think when you look back at the desktop world and kind of the major tools that evolved, you had one dominant player in the operating system, and that dominant player ended up owning the most dominant client. Most integrations kind of pooled around this one dominant client. But when you look at the mobile landscape, it's a lot different, right? There are two major operating systems for mobile, with a third really kind of fighting for that market share as well. So you've got three major platforms, then you've got five major email providers. And so this is a really fragmented market for anyone who wants to add just that one additional use case, that one additional feature. And so we think the really interesting position to be in is to be that platform across mobile and to provide that kind of ecosystem. So we are trying to work not just with the major, large folks like Box and Dropbox, although we've seen great response from folks like Box. But we think that the niche products, and the smaller products are really important as well because they serve a very kind of powerful and vocal user base. So.
Great. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, Dheeraj Bansal from Motley Bunch. So my question is, obviously change is difficult for everyone, especially given email as old as it is. So when you go out with your product in the market, how does your early adopters look like, or how did they look like? That's first part of the question. Second is, in your opinion, do you think it will ever become mainstream? And what would it take for this new email workflow to become mainstream?
Well, I think people that are experiencing this kind of pain have a very distinct kind of problem where they are every day suffering with this. And the kind of reaction that we get from users is that it's absolute euphoria when they can use a tool that like ours that solves that problem effectively. And I tell you, we get people that are literally saying to us, "This is the best web product experience I've ever had." And so that tends to, I think, have a little bit of a sticky effect on them, where they keep coming back because they really appreciate what it is we provide. And I think mainstream is difficult to judge. I think you have to start somewhere, and you have to kind of keep building and growing, and you never know when something's going to become mainstream. We're growing at a pretty decent rate on a monthly basis, so at some point we're going to be several million users, and then that starts to look pretty mainstream. So I think the main thing, though, is just focusing on the problem. We've also been absolutely fanatical about doing user testing and really making sure to listen to users and to understand how they're perceiving the product, make sure that we're not making bad assumptions about what the workflow looks like. And also, just really understanding, like you were saying, about how people have multiple different accounts, multiple service providers. You just have to be really tuned in to what people's needs are. And I think if you're fanatical enough about that, then you're going to build a strong following around a product. But it definitely takes time, and it takes a lot of listening. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know what it means to be mainstream with email. It's just such a. It's just what's like you said, what's that number? I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
Is 1 million users? No, probably not. Is 100 million users? Probably.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know where in the middle that goes.
Yeah, I'd say for us it's a question of mind share, and I think that absolutely, we're building a product that we want to be mainstream, and I think there is an opportunity for that, particularly in mobile. And I think that the challenge is just in getting over those switching costs, right? It's the same challenge that folks had back in the PC world, which is these devices all ship with the status quo kind of built-in application. But I think there really is opportunity to kind of to get that type of mind share going forward. And what we see is the pain is that acute for people that if you build a better mousetrap, people do flock to you.
I think it has to become just a daily habit. That's the way we sort of think about it, right? When I get out of bed, I'm looking at that email, so that's become a daily habit, clearly, and there's very few that you do it. And as long as it's in that flow, and that's why there's no simple answer to which ones you would integrate with, as long as it's in the natural flow of what you're doing, but also makes it better in that, then that's where you've got some traction.
There's a mic behind you, Rob.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shauna McLaren from Filey, and I just had a question in regards to integration with attachments and the trend to mobile. What are you seeing your users doing with attachments on their mobile devices? Are they just previewing and waiting until they get to their desktop, or are they taking action? And if they take action, what kind of action are they doing on mobile?
Yeah, so for us, I think one of the most interesting things is that, particularly in iOS, the treatment of attachments assumes only photos are super interesting in terms of being able to manipulate or store them locally. And so cloud storage integration story has become really important. And I think the things that we're focused on, we don't see a lot of document editing, but what we do see is a lot of document commenting, a lot of document approval chains and that sort of thing. And so generally I think this was echoed in the last talk, which is we don't see a lot of composition, but we do see a lot of decision. And so if we're able to help facilitate decision, that's something that users embrace. But if we prompt them to type out a multi-paragraph response, then they tend not to engage.
Yeah, I mean, I think photos seem like a place where people obviously consume that. There's a visual element to it, so that happens a lot. The documents and those things happen more on increasing the tablet-type devices or even the desktop. So sort of a clear distinction, I think. Sometimes you can get it. People do previews because they could see quickly maybe a quick piece of information that's embedded in a document that they might want to get out. But it's not for long-form consumption, I think, generally.
Not speaking off of great user testing, but my own personal experience, I find for me, I want to find an email and send it to somebody. And in particular, I think one of the biggest challenges with files and emails right now is linking them together. It's that I've got 7 versions of this file, and how do I know which one is the one I actually want or find the right one? And I think that's still a pretty interesting problem that I haven't seen many solutions to.
Hey, I'm Alex from Beta and Boomerang. It seems like a lot of the attention in this area, including you guys and to a great extent us also, is on the triaging aspect of managing email. How do you guys think about the other ways that we use email, like task management, decision making, and things like that?
Yeah, so I think triage is the kind of most obvious use case, and it's certainly the most popular for us as well. I mean, if the one thing people want to do most with email is delete it, right? I mean, that's the number one use case, right? But I think that what's interesting for us, we think about the 2 other use cases, and we were working on this pretty early, response and management. So we've layered in additional functionality for things like adding more metadata to whether it's due dates or priorities, and kind of extending the email data model with more structured data. And that has a certain following that gets very, very addicted to it. And I think the response piece is what's been most interesting for us. So we had this concept of email likes, which were just that social acknowledgement, right? It's the one swipe like email, and that's something that we're seeing people get really hooked on, is this idea of just got it, fist bump, saw it, and that's really, really applicable in mobile. But I think it's a change in mindset, right? It's not just, you wouldn't necessarily do that at desktop, right? You'd take the time to type out 3 words because you have the keyboard. But on desktop, the canned responses that we implemented, the email likes that facilitate faster response have been really popular.
Yeah, and I would say we're pretty much entirely focused on the triage piece and getting that 100% right, especially at scale. I think, the thing that we keep learning from users is that everybody has their own little pet fetish and, way they do things and what they do organizationally. And I think, what we're trying to do is just really provide a consistent set of tools that works in a really simple and general way, and then people can apply those however they want, and we'll leave the task management and semantic layer stuff to other tools. But I think over time, as we develop more of a larger following and stuff, that's something we would consider. But I think you're almost getting too personal with people when you start suggesting very specific workflow things, because everybody has their own existing stuff. So I think it's a really hard challenge.
I was going to ask you a question or clarification on what sort of actions were you thinking of? I mean, are these email actions like triage or beyond something else?
I was leaving that up to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what I think of when we think about things other than triage, it's things like how can we look for rich data that's structured inside of the email and that I don't need to necessarily deal with in the email and take it out and deal with it in another place. One of my simplest and favorite things about Other Inbox is a very not that well-known feature is we watch for all your shipping notices, and we just very simply create an iCal feed, and then the iCal feed shows up in my calendar. It just says I've got a package coming from Amazon today, and it's a much simpler version of what Slice and others have done, but it's just for me it's like that. It's great. It's like I don't really actually want the shipping notice in my email, I don't need to see it there. When I look at my calendar and I go, oh, tomorrow that thing's coming, I want to make sure that someone's there to receive it, or okay, I'm expecting to get it, or changes. That's actually much more useful to me on my calendar. And I think there's a lot of rich data structured within email that could work that way.
Question to you on that. I mean, how do you see the satisfaction on that, or how do you measure it, or do you see it's any feedback from users?
I wish we could measure more. Unfortunately, that one we haven't promoted heavily, so there just aren't. I don't think there are a lot of people using it. The people that see it are like, oh wow, that's really cool, and they like it. But I don't think we don't have a lot of good data on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are right at the end. We'll do one more question. I know last time we tried to make you do a quick question, so I won't say that again. But we'll do the last one here.
So I'm kind of curious about this pain-based adoption model that several of you have talked about. I see a lot of users at my workplace that are using Outlook, and they're really unhappy with it because they can never find messages when they want them. And yet they don't switch away from Outlook. They continue to use it, and they just keep griping about how much pain it is. So why don't they switch away?
Well, I mean, I'll start by saying the first kind of thing that we realized was that we're never going to make anybody switch necessarily. What we can do is provide a tool that provides a functionality that augments, their experience. And I think, with all of these different things operating on the desktop and on the mobile and whatnot, I don't think switching is where it's at. I think that it's more about, can you provide a tool that provides a function that makes their life better? And we have a lot of Outlook users that use our product in conjunction with Outlook or with Gmail or with Outlook.com and get a lot of value out of it, but without necessarily switching the underlying habits from their primary tool.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to is a lot of those people are okay with bitching about things. Most people don't actually want to spend the time to go fix it. And we kind of heard that in the last panel as well. It's just like, that's just very low on people's priority list is, I'm going to spend some time to make my email work better or to switch it over or to learn a new thing. And that's again, one of the biggest challenges, not just for startups, but for the biggest companies in the world too. It's just whether you're trying to do a startup and get someone to adopt something new, or you roll out a new version of Yahoo Mail and everybody switches, and it might be way better, but there's a whole bunch of people that are just pissed off because it's different, right? They're just like, no, this is different. I don't know how to use it. I'm trying to do my thing. I can't find something. And I think that's one of the most fascinating challenges that I've observed, working with Yahoo and others as they roll out these changes is like, you have to realize like, you're going to piss a bunch of people off because people aren't ready to go do that.
Yeah, people don't like change, and we know that.
Yeah,
they
do like to complain.
I would say also within the context of companies, we frequently find that if one person signs up for the product and they start ranting and raving about it in the lunchroom, then a whole bunch of other people within the company will go try it because it's very low friction to get onto it. And if you're saying to them, look, we can clean this stuff up without having you switch anything or without really any downside, it's all upside and no downside, then people will do that.
Great. All right, so we've got our first two panels this morning. We're going to take a short break right now. We're running a little bit late, so probably be a little shorter.
15 minutes.
Probably 15 minutes instead of 20. One thing I want to mention before everybody gets up, I'm glad to see it's a full room. Lots of people sitting in the back. You're welcome to sit in the back. We weren't sure how many people there would be, so there are more chairs. And so if there are some scattered around, and we can probably pull some more out too. So when you come back in, we'll try to have some more chairs up. But other than that, please, we'll take a quick break for about 15 minutes. Say hi to the people next to you, meet some of the other people you heard talk today, and we'll see you in a few minutes.